Why hello there, welcome back to the stream everyone. How you doing, how you doing? Well, I wanted to go over my opinions about the cheater epidemic. A few content creators have discussed this as of late, and I do believe I have some more to bring to the table. The main reason being I am also a part-time game developer. So I would like to discuss the reasons why this is happening, the reasons why DbD seems to be so infested with cheaters, and why it seems to be like an even bigger problem than with most games. And there are reasons behind this. It's not simply DbD being popular. It goes beyond that. So hopefully this is to add more to the discussion. So as a game developer, I can tell you right now, this is not just the game being, big. It's not just many people playing it and therefore due to its popularity, you get a load of cheaters. Because, don't get me wrong, cheaters are everywhere, but there's many in Dead by Daylight. And it's because essentially the game isn't properly made. Dead by Daylight, sadly, is not a game which has been created with security in mind. You see, when you go and create and work on a multiplayer game, you need to always have security in mind. You need to. Now, we all know that this game was born as a very humble, very small indie attempt at success. Like they would have never dreamt that DbD could have become so big as a game, that it could have exploded the way it did. No one could have anticipated it. So obviously the game does have some very modest roots. So I think it's safe to assume that when the game was first put together by our beloved McLean being one of the main programmers, it wasn't made with security in mind. They probably, I'm assuming, were just trying their best to pump out the game as quickly as possible to get that first reaction, to see if people liked it or if people didn't like it. And, they probably got off on the wrong foot, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. That's what happens when you make an indie game. You don't start out thinking, oh, my game's going to become so popular, then before you know it, it's going to be full of cheaters. So it is excusable. What is less excusable, what can be criticized now, however, is that despite the game growing and becoming huge, they still haven't implemented said security into the game. That, on the other hand, is and can be, healthily criticized, according to me, in my opinion. So, just to backtrack a little bit, the main problem, the main reason why DbD has so many cheaters is not just because of the popularity, but because there are no server-side checks in the game. Server-side checks are very important things that the game needs to have, just so the game can keep track of what's going on during every match. Because if you don't have any server-side checks, cheaters basically have free reign to do anything they want. They can fly around the map, they can get gens done in 2 seconds, they can open the exit gates in 1 second. They can basically do anything, and the server just is okay with it. The server doesn't check anything. There's no can this guy do a gen in 1 second? Yes or no? Can this guy body block 10 times in 5 seconds? Yes or no? There's no checks. So again, free reign. Free reign. Nothing gets analyzed. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to dissect here. But if you're making a multiplayer game and you don't have any security, then eventually you will run into problems. It's just inevitable. So things like completing gens quickly, opening exit gates immediately, owning modded items, for example flashlights which are a lot brighter than normal, which last forever with infinite batteries, infinite sabotage, just generally completing actions immediately such as healing, sabo, whatever you want, stuff like that. Being able to change your cosmetics mid-trial, I've seen that happening. Today I was watching True Talent and I noticed a survivor was actually leaving Trail of Torment. The survivor is leaving Pyramid Head's Trail of Torment. So, killers and survivors being able to exchange their powers, it reflects very poor programming. Some very poor programming. Because if you're a survivor and you can use a killer's perk or a killer's power, that underlines a much bigger problem with the game. It means that the game's just poorly made. It's poorly put together. Ghost faced with hatchets, indeed. I mean, you know what happens. You've seen it before. You've seen it before. So the problem is, if you have a game which is made that bad, you're going to encounter problems sooner or later, unless you hire someone who actually knows how to make games and who knows how to approach all these systems, so they're not flawed to begin with. Also, there's furthermore the issue of being able to unlock DLCs without owning them even. The list goes on, but you get the idea. It's just plain bad programming. It's plain bad programming. There's no excuse. Like, the main excuse we hear is, oh, this game's successful, therefore they must be cheaters. And that's only true to an extent, because, no joke, 90% of the cheats in this game could be prevented just through better programming and the security and the server-side checks I just mentioned. That's how easy it would be, you see. That's how easy it would be. 90% of all the cheats you see on DbD could be prevented. There's no miracle needed. All that's needed is proper programming. In fact, if you take, for example, Fortnite, you don't really see all these cheats for Fortnite. The only cheats you see for Fortnite are radars, wall hacks, and aimbots, because those are the only types of cheats that you can't prevent. Those are the only types of cheats that ultimately you can't prevent. You can attempt to, but you can't ultimately prevent. However, doing gens in 1 second, for example, if the server knows how much time has elapsed while someone's repairing, they know whether a gen can be completed or not. So if there's no check in place, then you can complete a gen in 1 second. You can open the exit gates in 1 second. The server doesn't know because the security has not been implemented. There's no check in place. There's no ask the server whether the guy can open the exit gate in 1 second or not. There's nothing. It's just, it seems to be put together very quickly, for one thing. It's being put together very, very quickly by people who don't know what they're doing, because if they did, it wouldn't be so bad. And that's the point. That's the problem. They need to backtrack and they need to implement all these checks so that all these cheats simply don't work anymore. It's that simple. It's actually quite simple. You need an expert. Obviously, you're going to need someone who knows what they're doing. But such people do exist. I happen to know one. One is a very good friend of mine, for example. So there are people who actually would know how to go about doing this. It's not that impossible. It's not that impossible. The most egregious part of all this, though, the most egregious part and the most problematic part is the hostage taking, though. That is the fundamentally most flawed thing about the game right now. It's not just the cheating, it's the fact that the cheater can decide to hold you hostage for 2 hours, forcing you to disconnect and forcing you into a DC penalty. That is the worst thing about it, because it's bad enough to have to play against them and have to lose matches just because someone's cheating, but then you get held hostage and you can't even DC. And the reason for that happening is because there is not even a check to see whether the game has ended or not. It's that bad. A cheater can say, hey, the game can't end, and the server won't end the game. That's how bad it is. But it's all due to poor programming. I'm telling you, it's not just the cheats. It's easy to cheat in DbD because it's badly made. If the game was well made, the server would always call the match to a close. Like, as soon as all the gens are done or whatever, the server would end the match. But it doesn't end because of poor programming. And that's the sad part. It's just poor logic. It's just complete. For example, perks are spawned in as actors. There's an overuse of blueprints throughout the game. It's just, it looks like an amateur job. It honestly looks like an amateur job. 30 minutes is enough. It's not even about the timing. I mean, the server should simply know when the match needs to end. It would be pretty easy to implement a system for the server to know exactly when the match needs to end. But no, apparently they don't seem to invested into following up these security issues. I don't know why. I don't know why Behavior isn't thinking about calling an expert in to fix their game, because it wouldn't be that difficult. It would take a few months, I guess, because you'd have to go through all the systems and slowly patch everything up. But it's something that needs to happen for the game to survive, because I'm telling you right now, if this doesn't happen, if they refuse to acknowledge and to act on these problems, and if they keep only releasing new DLC without addressing the real problems right now, the game will die. The game is moving towards a situation where people don't want to play it anymore, where streamers don't want to stream it anymore, because it's become a hostile experience, a hostile environment, an environment where you A, cannot play the game properly, and B, you get locked out the game if a hacker so chooses to lock you out the game. And those are two things which are clearly and blatantly a recipe for disaster. So they need to stop, focus on what's important, which is the health of the game. Go back, hire someone who knows what they're doing, and fix these problems. If you don't fix them, the game will die. It's not even an opinion at this point. For the remaining 10% of cheats which can't be detected directly through server-side checks, which, for example, could be an aimbot or a wall hack, in that case, the way to combat those cheats is simply a replay system. A replay system, which, by the way, the devs have already said they don't want to do, which is really, really disappointing. Because I'm pretty sure at one point they answered the question, will there ever be a replay system for DbD? And the answer was no, because we don't have time and it would take too much work and effort and it's not worth it. Really? Well, that's a shame, because there's no other way to know if someone's wall hacking. Wall hacking is something that you can't simply detect. It's not like a speed hack. A speed hack, the server knows that you're moving too fast. So in normal games, if you're moving too fast, the server will teleport you back and you'll get stuttering. If you're cheating in a game online that has server-side checks for speed, you will stutter back. It will teleport you to where you're supposed to be. So you'll basically keep stuttering back over and over. But with DbD, there's no security, so there's no check on movement speed. So you can fly around, you can run at, higher speeds than normal. The server doesn't know, the server doesn't care. But when it comes to wall hacks, you can't. You can't know if someone can see through a wall. So the only way to combat that is a replay system, so you can watch the match through other players' point of view. That is the only way. That's the only way to combat it. And if these devs have taken a stance and saying, wait, we're not interested in this. We're okay with people, like, we don't want to invest that amount of resources to try and limit cheating. I don't know why. I assume they believe the game can succeed in this situation. I disagree. I don't think it can. I think that we're approaching a point in time where people are fed up. They're fed up of being kept hostage. They're fed up of not knowing whether someone did a great play or whether they're cheating. They're just generally fed up with the negative experience that is the game right now. So we need a replay system, number one. We definitely need a replay system. We have to have a replay system to know what the hell goes on during every match. I think we can all agree on that point. And number two, we really painfully need server-side checks. Server-side checks for the end game, so we know when the game's over, so it can end. So we can prevent hostage situations that we have right now. We need server-side checks on gen completion, on exit gate opening, on healing speed, on recovery speed, on sabotage speed. All these actions that are in the game, they need to have server-side checks. That's what needs to happen. So please, please, please think about it, behavior. Think about it. Think about how longer this game could go on for and how much more successful it could be if only had that much more security implemented. Just that much more. Because again, as I said earlier, I'm going to say this again because it's important. 80% of all the cheats right now in Dead by Daylight could be prevented if the game was properly made with security kept in mind, which sadly it's not. Okay, but that's the underlying issue here. I want to make that crystal clear because people are a bit confused. They don't because obviously they're not game devs, so they don't know the details. They probably think, oh well, maybe it's so complicated and there's nothing the devs can do, and the cheaters are just smarter and they have all these weird systems to circumvent everything. And that is true up to a degree, but at the same time, this is a badly made game. This is an exceptionally badly made game from a security standpoint. So a lot more could be done. Again, a lot more could be done. And anyone in their right mind who has had experience making games knows this, by the way. This is not just me. Anyone could tell you the same thing. If you talk to any game dev who knows their way around an Unreal Engine, this is actually common knowledge. This is no secret knowledge or anything. If you don't implement any server-side checks, then that's basically like giving someone the keys to your house and being like, yeah, I'm just going to trust you. I'm just going to trust that you won't cheat, that you won't fly around the map or tell the server you did a gen in 1 second, because the server will believe you and say, yeah, I guess you did do a gen in 1 second. You see what I mean? It's a big problem. You need to know what you're doing when you make a multiplayer game. Otherwise, as soon as they get in, as soon as they circumvent easy anti-cheat, as soon as they bypass that first layer, the first shell, which is easy anti-cheat, at that point, they're in and they can do anything they want. They can do anything they want. You see, people think that easy anti-cheat can kind of, fix the situation. It can't, because it can be easily bypassed. There are basic out-of-the-box bypasses for easy anti-cheat. So once you're in, if there's no further security, then, yeah, the cheater can do anything they want. Not many people know this, I guess. But if you're a dev, you do. If you're a developer for Unreal, then you know this. It's common knowledge. By the way, one more thing. Talking about the replay system, Unreal already has the basics implemented for a replay system. So all you need to do is, add all the functions in, so to speak. But there's already a skeleton of that system out of the box in Unreal Engine 5. So it wouldn't be that hard to do. Again, it's more about the will to do it than the difficulty to do it. So there you go. In a nutshell, that's what needs to happen. Will it happen? I have no clue. Probably not. Most likely not. Before they even consider doing any of this, they would have to see the game do a lot worse. A lot less people would need to play for them to actually realize that it's needed. Because so far, I don't think it doesn't seem like they understand the degree to which, there's a problem. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. One can only hope. I don't know about you guys, but if they don't do something radical, it's not looking good, is it? It's not looking good. It's only going to get worse and worse over time. So fingers crossed, next year something good happens. But I'm not too optimistic. Maybe another 2 years, yeah, maybe. Anyway,